evening, everyone. Thank you for your patience. So we had a couple folks getting through security, so we wanted to make sure everyone had a chance to come in. There's a couple seats still available for folks if you'd like to sit down. But we thank everyone for coming tonight to the meeting of the Burlington City Council. Today is January 16th, 2018. Take a moment to please ask everyone to silence all electronic devices like that one. For tonight's invocation, we call on Council Member Harold Owen.
Bow our heads, please. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for providing us this opportunity to gather as a group and together make decisions which we hope to be best for the entire community. Give each member of this board wisdom in every decision. Grant each of us discernment and common sense so we can be strong and effective leaders. Please be with us as not only our community, but communities throughout the country are dealing with intense violent situations. Please save those who are not yet yours in helping us deal with this issue. In your name we pray. Amen.
We have a special report. This time we recognize City Finance Director Peggy Reese.
Thank you, Mayor and Council, for the opportunity to appear before you tonight. It is my pleasure to introduce to you folks who I believe do not need an introduction, but we have Patricia Rhodes and Tom McGowan here from our auditors, Stout, Stewart, McGowan, and King, and Patricia will be presenting their audit report on the City of Burlington.
Welcome back.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Peggy. Thank you for allowing us to be here tonight to discuss the audit for June 30th, 2017. As auditors, we work for the council. We work with city staff on the audit. I believe you have a copy of the comprehensive annual financial report for June 30th, 2017, which was prepared by the City of Burlington finance staff. On Roman numeral page 9, you can see the Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting, which was received for the year ending June 30th, 2016. This marks the 18th consecutive year that the award has been received by the city, and that's a great accomplishment. The parts of this CAFR report that are actually the auditors are our letters. The audit opinion letter that appears on Roman numeral page 12, and in the compliance section in the back, the report on internal control over financial reporting, and the report on compliance with each major federal program and state program. As stated in our opinion letter, the statements are the responsibility of management. They are also responsible for the preparation and fair presentation of the financial statements in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. Our responsibility as auditors is to express an opinion on the statements based on our audit, which was conducted in accordance with generally accepted auditing standards. Our opinion that we are rendering is a modified opinion, which is the best and cleanest opinion that can be received. The management discussion and analysis, which starts on Roman numeral page 15, is an excellent overall summary of this very large and detailed report. It contains financial highlights, financial analysis and economic factors, and budget highlights for 2017. Some of the differences in this report compared to last year's is the inclusion of the city's liability of the law enforcement officer's special separation allowance. And this is the first year that it has actually been shown as a liability on the statement of net position. There is also a new enterprise fund, which is the public transportation fund. It's being shown as an enterprise fund. On the modified accrual or budgetary basis, the fund balance increased for both the general fund and the water and sewer fund. The overall tax collection rate for 2016 was 98.61%, which is an excellent collection rate. In the compliance section in the back of the report, on pages 167 and 168, there's a list of grant monies that were expended during the year. As part of our audit, we do consider internal control, but we do not express an opinion on the internal control. But we do consider it to determine our appropriate auditing procedures. As part of that consideration of internal control, nothing came to our attention that we were required to report to you as a material weakness or significant deficiency. If we had had something to report to you, we would have issued a separate letter to you. The two-page letter that I believe you have a copy of, which is separate from the CAFR, is a required communication by our professional standards to the council. In the letter, we disclosed that we encountered no difficulties with management in performing our audit, nor did we have any disagreements with management over any accounting, reporting, or auditing matters. We continue to work with finance staff on the implementation of any new governmental accounting standard board statements issued and the effects that they would have on the financial reporting of the city. In years past, there's been a few that have come about that dealt with the pension disclosures, and so that has been ever-evolving disclosures and the liabilities that have been shown for the pensions. Are there any questions?
Any questions from council? Thank you very much.
Well, we thank you for allowing us to be the independent audit firm for the city. We are local, and we are available for any questions the council may have. And I'd like to thank Hardin, Peggy, and all the city staff for their assistance during our audit. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, if I could, a special thanks to the staff because, as was mentioned in the presentation, a significant part of this volume of work was done by our own staff, and it's something that takes us throughout the year to do it. And secondly, I think, from just context around the state, we're very fortunate to have a respected local firm that can do this work. I know in talking to the Treasurer's Department now, there are actually some cities who will be late. They've already been told they would indicate they will be late in getting their audit in because they've gone with larger state firms, and there have been issues in the audit will not be turned in on time. So I can't tell you how how fortunate we are to have a respected firm, as these people are, to be able to prepare this document and work with us.
Thank you again. Any other council comments? This time we recognize City Clerk Renee Ward.
Members of council, it's my responsibility to remind you of your duty to avoid conflicts of interest. I ask now if there are any potential conflicts concerning tonight's agenda items.
None.
Before council are minutes from the January 2nd, 2018 City Council meeting. Do I hear a motion and second to approve those minutes?
So moved.
Second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Minutes have been approved. There's an add-on agenda item for the consent agenda, item C, letter of support for the African American Cultural Arts and History Center. Do I hear a motion and second for that item?
Make a motion that we approve the add-on as requested.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Add-on item has been approved. Before council is the agenda, including the add-on item. Do I hear a motion and second to adopt that agenda?
Move we adopt the agenda with the add-on.
Second.
All those in favor of adopting the agenda with the add-on, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion is passed. Next is our consent agenda. These items are typically non-controversial. If anyone has any questions about them, please let us know. Item A, to adopt a resolution authorizing the donation of Burlington Police Department's 40 tower site repeaters to Guilford County Metro 911 pursuant to North Carolina General Statute Section 160A-274. Item B, to award a contract to Breeze Enterprises, Inc. in the amount of $118,470 for replacement of a 290-foot 5-foot segment of the Willowbrook Park sewer line and approve budget amendment 2018-25, details of which are spelled out in your agenda to fund that project. Item C, to authorize the city manager to send a letter of support to Ms. Jane Sellers regarding Alamance County African American Cultural Arts and History Centers. Do I hear a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Consent agenda has been approved. We have a number of public hearings this evening, as some of you might know. Item 1, public hearing is been set to receive citizen comments on the 2017-2018 CDBG Community Development Block Grant Annual Action Plan amendment. At this time, we recognize Community Development Administrator Sonia Randolph.
Thank you. Good evening, council members, and a special welcome to you, our new council member. I haven't had the chance of personally meeting you yet, but welcome. I know this is your second go-around here. So today we're here because on January 2nd, we did set the public hearing date as for today, for January 16th, to open up our comment period for the amendment to our 2017-2018 CDBG budget. So in your agenda packets, you did receive a budget, a program budget, and in that program budget, there is the original line item of what was approved during our July 2017 meeting. And then there is also the proposed numbers that we're proposing right now to amend specifically 4 programs in the CDBG line item budget. That first program is a construction training program, and we are proposing to reduce the initial allocation amount of $65,000 down to $26,740. And that is due to, after our audit, our HUD audit that we had back in the summer with our local HUD rep, we found out that there were some things that we were paying for out of the construction training program budget line item that were ineligible. So the amount with the $26,740, that accounts for everything that HUD has told us that is now eligible. So we do know, I worked with the construction training program coordinator, Kep Paler, and we worked to kind of whittle down their budget to see which things were actually CDBG eligible. And so we do know that $26,740 are eligible costs. To account also, though, for the $65,000 in total that we do need as match money for the construction training program. I do plan to take it from another line item that we have, which consists of our loan payments from which was our rental rehab loan program. We are still taking in loan payments, however, we don't administer that program anymore. For North Park development, for the Mako and Sertoma renovations, I am proposing that we increase that line item budget from $100,000 to $120,000. I'm also proposing that for North Park Library, that we increase the line item for $7,931 up to $10,000, which is what we usually do on a yearly basis for books and materials up at North Park. And we are also, I'm also proposing that for Allied Churches, they were not actually on our initial 2017-2018 budget. They had some staff turnover, so unfortunately they were not able to apply along with the other organizations. So we are proposing that because they have an urgent capital need with the influx of clients that they do see, and especially since they now serve a 5-county area, that we are proposing $63,876. So approximately $47,685 will come from our 2016-17 CDBG budget. And also, so right now, before I take any questions, we do have actually 2 of the organizations here, if you would like to question them about their urgent need, and they're just going to come up to the podium here and just give a brief description of their program and their urgent need. We do have a representative, Richard Gary from Allied Churches, and we also have Representative MJ Wilkerson from the North Park Library.
Welcome.
Mayor and City Council, I am MJ Wilkerson. I'm the Director of Alamance County Public Libraries, and the money from the Community Development Block Grant funds the resources that we use for North Park. And we're seeing a lot of exciting things happen in North Park. We The number of people that attended programs that we've offered has increased by 318 people. So we're really delighted about that. And the number of reference questions and reader's advisory that we answer to questions on has increased by over 1,000. We are working with Alamance Community College to provide free basic adult education classes, so we're very excited about that opportunity. And the staff person that I have out there, I think Mr. Laws has met, and she is just a piece of dynamite in terms of getting out there and getting folks involved. So we're really seeing a lot of success at North Park, and the additional funding will help us be able to purchase materials that address the needs and the interest of that community.
Jay, can I ask you what the operational hours are now at the North Park facility?
The operational cost, I don't.
Hours.
Oh, hours. We are there from 11 to 8, and we close from 3 to 4, Monday through Friday. And I know that, like yesterday, for Martin Luther King Jr. Day, there was an event, and so Alexis opened up the library there.
So my point is there's certain times, or there's time allocated for a lot of the kids in that neighborhood who might not have access to some materials at home.
Yes,
to be able
sir.
to visit that facility.
We really wanted to look at when the library was open so that we could address kids needing to have homework help and be available for homework help. And one of the things, our volunteer hours there has increased by 217, so we've got folks coming in and helping tutor the kids and do their homework. And Alexis is just extremely outgoing and is great working with the kids. We have checked out, we can check out iPads to the patrons, and normally, let's see, last year we only checked out, this year we checked out 295, whereas last year we checked out 178, and that's the kids coming in and using those for their homework. So she's very attuned to developing literacy skills and working with their homework, and being sure that we're there the hours that we're needed the most.
Excellent.
What kind of materials are you buying? Does it include computers?
We buy printed books and AV, and we have electronic items that come out of my regular budget, since there's no physical piece there. Anybody can, once something's purchased, it belongs to the whole system, and it floats from library to library. Its home may be at North Park, but if somebody in Mebane wants a title or a DVD or a book on CD, then we get it. The state funded a North Carolina digital library this 2 years ago, and it's nothing but children's electronic books, and we contribute to that. And for a while, Charlotte Mecklenburg and Alamance County were the two that had the highest circulations in the state. I mean, we were running neck and neck, and I was just beating everybody else hands down, but Wake County caught up with me. So we do, and that's specifically children's materials, children's electronic books. We have the ACPL Connect, which is the library card that every school student has, a library account using their school ID. So every child has a library account, and it's a fine-free account, so they don't have to worry about keeping materials overdue and being charged.
Any other questions? Thank you, MJ.
Thank you.
Welcome, Richard.
Hello, thank you. Allied Churches is the only homeless shelter within a 5-county consortium known as PRAC, or Region 6, that includes Person, Rockingham, Alamance, Chatham, and Caswell County, respectively. At Allied Churches, we've been in the business for over 30 years of trying to combat homelessness and food insecurity here in Alamance County. We provide food assistance through our food pantry and our community kitchen known as Joe Diner, to where we provide hot meals 2 times a day, 5 days a week. And actually here in the next month or so, we actually plan to expand that to serve breakfast to the community. In addition, to meet the community needs, we are introducing a food on wheels pantry program, a pantry on wheels program, to where we serve elderly and disabled individuals that's unable to make it to the food pantry. With the aging of our building and the increase in community traffic through our doors, the restroom facility we currently provide to our neighbors are in dire need of updating. In addition to our other programs, we just started offering an outreach program to where we meet chronically homeless individuals where they are, and we connect them to various community resources to ensure their safety and their level of success. As Sonia mentioned, Allied Churches went through a number of challenges last year, and one of those challenges were we was without proper leadership. As a result, we dropped the ball on applying for grants. If awarded the funds, we will use it to do some major upgrades to the facility. Once again, on average, we serve 225 people per day at Allied Churches. Thank you, and it's an urgent need. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from council?
No, we have used CDBG monies for Allied Churches in the past for urgent needs. We've had roof repairs, I know. We've had kitchen upgrades, which was sorely needed at the time. And the work you guys do is tremendous, especially this time of year.
Thank you.
So I know I totally understand your need.
Thank you.
Sonia, any other comments before we open the public hearing?
Only thing I do want to add is that Allied Churches did eventually submit a proposal to us, and in that proposal, it is more than the money that I am proposing, but they have stated that they have money to account for that difference. I think approximately $12,000
Yes.
to get them up to the amount that they need for the renovations.
Okay. Excellent.
So if anyone has any questions for me, I can answer them.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
This is a public hearing. If anyone on this side of the room would like to speak regarding CDBG. Anyone on this side of the room?
Also, I do want to add that, again, this is just to open up our public hearing. We do have to have to open up our our 30-day public comment period, which will end February 16th. So this is also advertised, or will be starting tomorrow on our website, and also in the newspaper tomorrow, that if people were not able to attend the meeting today, that they will be able to submit comments, written comments to me, or they can actually call me if they really want to. But they will be able to submit written comments to me up until February 16th in the planning department, and we will have our annual action plan open for review starting tomorrow.
Okay. Any other questions from council? Do I hear a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Public hearing is now closed. That moves us to item 2 on our agenda. Public hearing has been set to consider an application for initial zoning of property recently annexed into the city of Burlington from Guilford County. The property was previously zoned conditional heavy industrial and conditional use light industrial under Guilford County, and the proposed zoning is MFA, multifamily residential. The property is located at the east end of Pace Drive and shown as Guilford County parcel number 883-462-0140. And this time we recognize Director of Planning and Community Development, Amy Nelson.
Thank you, and good evening, Mayor and Council. This zoning request comes to you with the recommendation of staff. Planning and Zoning Commission are recommending the request unanimously. The property was annexed into the city of Burlington in October of last year. It was not previously in our ETJ, therefore it requires City of Burlington zoning. And as you can see on the zoning map here, this is the piece in question, and it will connect Burlington with Burlington. Be a little bridge there. So this will no longer be a satellite annexation. And Ms. Jennifer Fountain is here to explain the request.
Okay. Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you for allowing me to speak. I represent Woodland Heights of Burlington Phase 3 LLC. My name is Jennifer Fountain, and I'm an attorney from Greensboro. We're here tonight to request the approval of the initial zoning of a 17.909 acre property that was annexed into the city of Burlington on October 2nd, 2017. The property is located at the east end of Pace Drive and has visibility from Interstate 4085. In Guilford County, the property was previously zoned conditional use heavy and light industrial. We're here tonight requesting that the property be initially zoned by the city of Burlington as multifamily A or multifamily residential. The property is bounded by the east by an existing apartment complex, Woodland Heights, and by a single-family neighborhood off of Springwood Village Drive. The property is bounded by the north by a collection of single-family homes on Greason Road. On the west, the property is bounded by industrial uses, including Sasser Companies and TA Truck Wash, and the interstate is to the south of the property. We ask that the property be zoned multifamily residential, as this provides a good transition from the industrial uses to the west to the residential uses to the east. Further, the proposed zoning is consistent with the comprehensive plan, which calls for residential use. The subject parcel and the existing apartment complex to the east are owned by companies in which Tom Holderby is the majority member. Mr. Holderby has been constructing apartments for 30 years and currently has projects throughout the state. The existing apartments to the west have been open since 2010 and offer 264 units with options for 2 to 3 bedrooms. The existing apartments have enjoyed an occupancy rate of over 95% and has at times had a wait list. We sent letters to the neighbors provided by the planning staff advising them of the rezoning. 3 people attended the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting to ask questions of the developer and to gain a better understanding of the process with the various jurisdictions involved. We met with them after the hearing to discuss the plans from property. Other than that, we've had no further questions about the development. We respectfully ask that our zoning application be approved consistent with the staff's favorable recommendation, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Any questions from council for Ms. Fountain?
Thank you.
Thank you. This is a public hearing. If anyone on this side of the room would like to speak. Anyone on this side of the room? Do I hear a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved. Second.
All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Public hearing is now closed. Do I hear a motion regarding this rezoning request?
Based on the recommendation of staff and P&Z, I'd move that we approve the request based upon the consistency with the comprehensive plan, and that this action is reasonable in the public interest, and that the amendment is compatible with the existing land uses in the area.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any questions regarding the motion? All those in favor of the motion to approve, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes. Next on our agenda, item number 3, a public hearing has been set to consider an application to rezone from R15 and R9 residential district to CR conditional residential district for the use of a 42-unit townhome development. The property is located at 2945 Alamance Road, referenced as Alamance County Tax Identification number 114544. An amended site plan has been submitted. This time, council again recognizes Director of Planning and Community Development, Amy Nelson.
This rezoning request comes to you with the recommendation of planning staff from a land use perspective and the Technical Review Committee. Planning and Zoning Commission are recommending the request to council, also from a land use perspective, by a vote of 4 to 3. We've had some questions come up from our elected officials prior to tonight's meeting, and I'm going to try to address those now. Our documents speak to connectivity, so I'd like to highlight some of what they say. Our code assessment is a document that was approved by City Council. It mentions the comprehensive plan wants to increase connectivity. The code assessment calls for, and I quote, requirements for street stubs to lot lines shared with vacant lands in excess of 2 acres in area. It is looking to utilize that as a development tool in the future to make adjoining developments easier. The comprehensive plan, of course, also adopted by council. The land use chapter, page 71, the suburban development pattern often includes cul-de-sacs and dead ends, which discourage connectivity, Instead, this type of development should provide a connected street network to adjoining neighborhoods with pedestrian and bicycle facilities as standard fixtures of the network. In Land Use Chapter, page 78, cul-de-sac streets which do not encourage connectivity should be minimized. These are just trying to emphasize that from a planning perspective, cul-de-sacs are not generally a good idea. They are useful. The public does enjoy those. There's people who prefer to live on cul-de-sacs. But as far as trying to connect the city, make it easier to get around, make it easier for emergency officials to get into a neighborhood and help people in a timely manner, they are to be discouraged. Then I also have a note, if the conceptual plan presented tonight is approved by City Council, since it differs from the TRC approved version, a preliminary plan will be required to go back through TRC for a detailed review and approval. And Mr. Matt Wall is here to speak to this request.
Welcome, Mr. Wall.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Thank you, Amy. Do any of the members need a supersized version of the latest plan? I noticed in the public hearing it did say the last sentence, an amended site plan has been submitted. I think that's, somebody has a gift. There have been, how many amended site plans have there been, even today?
Yeah.
But in any event, I do have a large version of the latest. Would that be helpful to anybody?
Why don't you put it out up here in case other people want to see it? I think it'd be good to have it up here.
Well, let me just, you don't have to use it if you got it. I think y'all might have it on the screen. In case.
Matt, has the neighbors seen this?
Yes. That's my, well, I can't say every neighbor, but my understanding
Is anybody here who has not seen this?
I'll share mine now.
and I've got another one in here too, that
Gentleman in the
I'm
rust
happy
color.
to share. Actually, I handed all mine up there. So.
Yes, the question is that match this?
I believe this was included in the, is it on the, in the system so that it's available? Is that? It's on, it's up there. Is that okay?
Spread this one out.
It should match these long versions.
It's going to be exciting.
I just thought of somebody out there wanting.
That's funny.
Did everyone get a copy of that new site plan that needed stuff? They're large enough to share with multiple of your neighbors.
Yeah. In fact, one will serve a couple or three of the folks, I would imagine. So.
Would you like to?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and council. And I want to address, of course, staff and other interested parties here. My name is Matt Wall. I'm an attorney with the law firm of Holt, Longest, Wall, Blates, and Mosley, address 3453 Forestdale Drive in Burlington. And I will be addressing and speaking in favor of this particular rezoning application. And I represent some folks who are also present here tonight. Shugart Homes, which is the developer and co-applicant. Greg Garrett. Greg, raise your hand, stand up. Greg's right here. I think he's probably going to speak, and I'm going to probably defer technical and certain other questions to him if I get those. Also, we have Adam Parker, sorry, Adam, is here. He represents the folks who actually are still the owners and the contract sellers of the subject tract. And we have Aiden Stoltzfus, the engineer, who's been involved in this project from the beginning and was working feverishly at the end of the day to get these latest revisions done. So they're going to be available, I think, to answer any questions that I can't handle. But and if y'all hear something that I say that's wrong, please stand up and say the correct thing. So first of all, I'd like to just commend everyone who, or at least the ones that I'm familiar with who are here tonight. I think everybody has put forth a lot of effort and a great attitude of positivity to try to work something out in this regard. And as I sort of jokingly referred to, this is, there have been multiple revisions even today. But I think that's a testament to the folks who have shown an interest in the property, in the project. They are working to try to get this thing resolved and approved, and I think that is a great thing. Everybody's been very patient, been very professional, worked hard on this, kept an open mind, and been very collaborative, and we appreciate all those efforts as far as everybody who's concerned. There have been a lot of direct conversations with homeowners, especially the folks who own the property immediately to the east that fronts directly on Alamance Road, the Seleckies. There have been conversations, a lot of direct conversations, and most of these conversations were between Mr. Garrett and Mr. Parker with the homeowners. The folks who are in sort of in the center south portion of the adjoining property, the Powells, and with other folks that are adjoining the property. And I think those have been very helpful. They have been ongoing for a long time, from even before the planning and zoning to up to this very day. And they've been very helpful in narrowing the areas of concern and trying to, again, come to some agreement about what this project can look like. And that's what you have before you tonight. And again, that's just the latest version of a plan that's been tweaked numerous times, and certainly the city has provided us a lot of feedback, and that's been helpful. And you know, this is the final version that we've been able to come up with. So hopefully this will be something that's acceptable to the council. As you know, the basic big picture of this is to rezone this tract from R15 to R12. And essentially, that is the very basic nature of the request. Staff and TRC did approve the plan, not, again, as Amy said, not the plan that's sitting right in front of you, but an earlier version. And it went through planning and zoning and was passed by a narrow 4-3 vote, and thus it's here. It was actually up for a public hearing originally, I think, in November. It was continued from that time and delayed until tonight to allow the affected adjoining property owners and the developer and applicant to engage in further discussions to try to resolve some of the issues that had engendered the opposition of those folks that owned property adjoining. I think one thing I'd like to point out, and the council may even already be aware of this, I think staff is, but that even if there were no rezoning of this property, even if it remained R15, that would mean that the property could still be developed. And it could be developed because the nature of the letter designation isn't changing. It's not going to go to multifamily or industrial or anything like that. It's still going to be residential. And that could be done without public hearing and without really input of the adjoining property owners. And it would, by my calculations and what I think staff has told us, there could still be about 80% of the units that would be available to put in R15 as opposed to what's now being proposed with the 41. Well, the 41 new ones and with the remaining existing house being put in there as the 42nd. You know, objections, I think, from the adjoining property owners are in one sense understandable because this is going to be a change. It results in things changing from what they're used to. And any time there's change, sometimes there's some resistance. Obviously, the council is going to need to weigh the plans that have been presented with those rights of the adjoining property owners and also the interests of the entire city. And certainly as an advocate for my client, I believe this plan and development would be an absolute benefit for the city of Burlington and for Alamance County. And why is that? Because the location and nature of the property, the surrounding properties, it fits within, as Amy said, fits within the development ordinance, and again, not changing the basic use of the property. It's still going to be residential, not commercial or business. From the information that's been provided to me, the developer estimates that these units are going to sell in the range of minimum $200,000 to $220,000. Now, if you factor that in, again, just in rough terms, easy zeros, you say take 200 times 40, that's $8 million. That would be the increase in the tax base for this property. And it would obviously result in additional tax revenue for the city and for the county as well. So those are just rough numbers, but that's sort of, I think, an easy way to view how this is going to contribute to the tax base in the county, in the city. I think one of the developments that's not too far away, in fact, this is down Highway 62 or Alamance Road, not too far away from this property that would be somewhat similar, is the development known as Woods at Grove Park, which is up off of South Mebane Street, just to the west of its intersection with Alamance Road. Those streets, as I understand it, though, in Woods at Grove Park are in fact private streets. These streets that are being proposed by this plan will be public streets. They'll be built to standards that the public, that would allow them to be supported and maintained by the city. And I think that certainly is something that the city would encourage, and I think they are very appreciative of that fact. I think that you may have, and Joey, tell me if I'm wrong, but there were some photos that went out later this afternoon. Did the council get those photos of the Glen Haven?
We have them on the computer.
Oh, they're on the computer, okay.
The elevations you're talking about?
What's that?
The elevations?
No, I was just talking about there were some photos that had been sent to about the development that Shugart had done that was very similar in Winston-Salem.
We've got them on the computer.
Okay. So there's a development called Glen Haven in Winston-Salem that includes townhomes that's very similar to this development. I think you can get an idea of what those, yeah, that's one right there, what these houses would look like. Shugart has been very active in Alamance County in recent years. Some of the other neighborhoods that they've been involved in are South Park and Nana Graham, which is off Rogers Road. They have been involved with a development called Stone Ridge up in Gibsonville. And they've also, what's the other one that's? Hideaway Village. Hideaway down at the Challenge Golf Course, that's right. And of course, this Glen Haven, which is over in Winston-Salem, that's very similar from a townhome standpoint. Mayor and City Council, the developer, in my opinion, and I think once you hear a little bit more, and you may have even already heard some of this, but the developer really has gone, in my opinion, the extra mile to listen to and address the legitimate concerns and objections of the adjoining property owners in this matter. Especially, as I said before, the Suleckis, who are immediately to the east, and the Powells, who are just to the south. It appears to me, from what I understand, that those folks are now relatively agreeable to the project based on this latest revision, and we hope the city will be will have the same frame of mind and can provide the same kind of approval. The conditions that will be a part of this approval are on this latest plat and latest plan. They go all around the property, and I'm happy to address any of those that you might want to bring up, or Aiden, the engineer, or Greg can maybe address those as well. But they are on the latest sheet. If there's not 100% agreement down the line on every detail, then I think the council may need to make a decision as far as that goes. But we certainly strongly urge that the approval be given as to the plan that's been submitted and the conditions that relate to that plan. I think traffic may have been a question mark at some point, but I think there's previously been, and I think council has the traffic study that was prepared, and that indicated that, and based on my review of the notes from the hearing at Planning and Zoning, that the traffic was not deemed to be to increase substantially what goes down on Highway 62. But that does lead into another point that is very important, and it's why the negotiations with the Suleckis were so important. I mean, really essential to this project, because there's going to need to be what they call a site easement along their property from where this road is going to go into Highway 62. The access road will go into Highway 62, and then up the road where there's a bend in Highway 62 up to the north. And that site easement is going to be crucial to the development of this project. DOT won't allow the connection unless that's approved, and the Suleckis have to agree on that. I think that's all the remarks I had to provide up front. If there are any questions, then I'll also ask Greg or Aiden if they have. I mean, they're available to answer any questions from the council too.
I just have one question right now, just for clarification, and I may have misunderstood, but this is from R15 to R9. Is that correct? Is that or is it R12?
It's conditional.
Okay, so
The density is R12.
That's what I'm sorry.
Okay.
The density is such that it would still fit R12. That's right.
And there will be time to circle back for questions following public comment, so as council members have. And any other council questions prior to the public hearing? All right, thank you, Mr. Wall. This is a public hearing. If anyone on this side of the room would like to speak.
Actually, could I follow behind Matt?
Sure, if you'd like to add a couple things. As Mr. Garrett.
Honorable Mayor, members of the council, my name is Greg Garrett, and I work for Shugart Homes. I do the land acquisition and development for Shugart Homes. We're a privately held company, family business, been in business for over 50 years. Our headquarters is in Winston-Salem, and I guess probably about, I'd say 15 years ago, we started our expansion eastward, and as Matt pointed out, we've done several developments in Alamance, have really enjoyed working here in Alamance. There's several subs that we have picked up here in Burlington and have just done tremendous work for us. And so, I want you to think about us as a local builder developer, and we are developer builder, which is nice, especially in these type of situations, because you're basically talking with the end user. It's not lots, it'll be prepared, and then another builder come and get involved with it. So I think that's important to know. This project has definitely been challenging. It's been one of the more challenging ones that I've been involved with, and I've been involved with quite a few. But I can say that, we have put our best foot forward, and there's been countless meetings and conversations that have taken place. So I think we've got a plan that's before you that I can truly say has been a compromise. At the end of the day, the people we've negotiated, would they rather there not be development? Yes. But this is kind of taking that situation and making it as accommodating as possible. So just real quickly to tell you about the fun part of the project is these homes have these home plans have evolved for us over the past 20 years as the baby boomers have been, retiring, aging out, and looking to downsize. We have evolved these plans over the past probably 10 years where they're designed for empty nesters, retirees, and a lot of thought has gone into the floor plans. They've been very, very successful wherever we've built them, and we're really excited about introducing this product to Burlington. there's a project, north of here that was referenced earlier, Woodgrove and Keystone Homes. I think they were the builder there. A lot of those floor plans are two-story or 1.5-story. These are one level. If you want to have a finished bonus over the garage, you can. But even that, we typically will put in like permanent steps. Again, thinking about the buyer that's interested in this product, we want to make sure that it meets all of their needs and wants. All the units are two-car garage. We are planning to build the same product that we've built at Glen Haven, which you saw the photos of that. So we're talking about all brick and stone exterior, with the exception of where we have gables. Oftentimes we'll use an upgraded like vinyl shape for that, which again, those pictures reflected that. And then if there's a bump out for like a sunroom, oftentimes that is vinyl, but everything else brick and stone, so 100% masonry other than those exceptions. The price point of these units, and it keeps going up the more that I negotiate, but right now we're looking at $220 is kind of the starting point. And what we do and pride ourselves on is that when we bring customers in, they'll pick out the lot and then they'll pick out the floor plan, and then they come to our design gallery where we have over like 5,000 options to really customize their home. So in many ways, especially with a product like this, we're more of a semi-custom builder. Because when you have 5,000 options, I mean, there's a lot that you can do to your home to really make it feel personable. So that is the plan here. So we're talking about a minimum of 220. I would foresee homes in here selling well above that. Probably your average is going to be in the 240, 250 range, and there'll be some that be pushing 300. So we're real excited about this project. We think that there is a demand here in Burlington for this type of product, and we're very excited to bring it to Burlington. I just asked for your favorable vote tonight, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions for Mr. Garrett from council?
Maybe one addendum is that and you guys have done this enough to know, but so another benefit of this type of product is all of the maintenance, the exterior yard maintenance, is provided by the HOA. And so that is something that, as we've met with the neighbors, they like. So you're talking about a consistent, uniform landscape throughout the development. You don't have one person that lets their grass go high and then cuts it every 2 weeks versus everyone else, once a week. And of course, the public streets is a big deal. Because we've been developing for so long, we have seen a lot of problems that come with the private streets that a lot of developers do for a townhouse project. And so we really try to be committed to doing the public streets, because we don't want that to be a problem for the homeowners nor the city who gets those petitions, after the road starts to crumble. So thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you. All right, this is a public hearing. If anyone on this side of the room would like to speak. Yes. And when folks speak, if I could ask you to please state your name and address.
Hi, I'm Jason DeBoer. Thank you, Mayor and City Council, for hearing me. I was able to speak with most of you all concerning this project. My wife and I, Monica, my wife over there, and I represent the property that borders this to the west, I guess. We're looking at it. Yes, right there. So I am a builder, local builder here, and a developer. So I understand the need for development, and I'm for development. I'm for development. I'm not for this development in this area for a few reasons. One is I'm concerned about the property values. The attorney spoke, and I may be a little bit confused, but he had mentioned that if we did this, if the property was developed R15, then you could put 80% of these homes, which would be about 34 of these homes, 32 to 34 of these homes on the property. But according to my calculations, and maybe Aiden could speak on my behalf here, if you put in roads and things like that, I could only fit about 20 to 22 homes, single-family residential homes. But even with that being said, 20 homes at $350,000 brings in $7 million revenue to the city, you know, if it was developed as is. And again, I could be wrong, but that was just according to my calculations there. And that could be developed with the slope of the land as it is, instead of having to go in and cut out everything, add large retaining walls, and it would stick to more of what the feel is there. That's one piece that I'm concerned about. But the biggest piece is that according to the new plan, it shows a road stub out, which leads directly into my property. Now, on the other side, which you can't see from here, there's Marlowe Drive, which is in Grand Oaks.
We do have a image of Marlowe Drive.
When we purchased this property, we purchased it with the idea of building our own home one there. My wife and I, we've just recently finished. About a year and a half ago, we built our house, and you know, it's 20 acres. And it's secluded. It's really nice in the sense that it's secluded, and I would be tremendously opposed, and I'd like for that to go on public record, that I'm really opposed. I do not want a road going through our property. And my concern is that if this development has traffic issues and poses problems in the future, what's to keep the city from seizing that property to put a road through? Or if we wanted to build a house for my daughter on the back part of our property, would I then be required to connect those two roads? Because I know the city's idea is to have roads connected. I think Amy mentioned that as part of, and it's makes good sense to me. I just don't want that to be an issue for me, and that's my biggest concern. Again, I'm pro-development, but you know, I wouldn't want a road going through our property. Years ago, about 7 years ago, I came before this city council concerning Eric Lane, the property that I live on now. We were going for unconditional rezoning to put some apartments there. And two people from surrounding areas on Bonnie Lane came in opposition, and it did not pass. So I want that to be, I just want to say that, and respectfully admire your position and understand your desire to make things all work, but we oppose. And I just wanted to let you know.
Thank you. Could you state your address just for the record?
2400 Eric Lane.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. DeBoer. Amy, would you be able to respond to his question regarding traffic connectivity or any requirement there in the future? Because I believe that is elective or...
There's not a requirement.
Yeah.
Ideally, from a planning perspective, the UDO is not done yet, but from a planning perspective, you want to see roads stubbed out to the property line. And that allows for easier connectivity in the future should someone else choose to develop the property, say, 50 years from now.
The property is currently at R15, which, as mentioned, should he build a home for his daughter, that does permit an additional house on that property without any rezoning, and so no condition, no requirement.
It just depends on the situation, if he wants to split off a piece for her or whatever.
Okay.
We'll have to see
So
how
it would
that
all
goes.
depend on...
Just for clarification purposes too, though, if this was an R15 project, more than likely that type of requirement would still be in for connectivity.
Well, we don't have a lot of that right now. What I was reading to you is from the comprehensive plan and the code assessment. When the UDO is done, hopefully that will be in there because that's been what council has seen they wanted and what the public has wanted. So that should be a part of it in the future. Just right now, we don't have as much teeth in that.
But for R15 or R12 or R9, they would all basically recommend the stub road. So,
Right.
does that make sense?
Is it possible to request that stub not to be there? In this case, since the plan has been revised numerous times, it would actually save the developer some money too.
We are tasked with the unfortunate responsibility of planning long into the future beyond any of our lifetimes. And so that recommendation is in kind of best policy for long-term planning for cities. So, and I believe that's been recognized as a best practice around the country. But
Is there any instance where the city could take that property in eminent domain?
that'd be a question for Attorney Huffman.
I understand that you own the property now.
Yes, sir.
You're in the best position of all at this point in time, and I can't predict the future, and I can't predict, but I think you laid it out. If that were to happen in the future, the city would do it, but this is not what you call these are not thoroughfares through here. I don't know that road is on any transportation plan that we have now, and not being on a thoroughfare, I would doubt the city would really be interested in doing so.
Continuing the public discussion, if Mr. Wall did.
May I just briefly respond to one thing? He asked about my reference to the number of units that could be available at R15. I was merely relying upon the information Mr. Lee had given that's in the minutes, page 11 of the minutes from Planning and Zoning when this was heard at that time. Anybody that was at that, I wasn't there, but anybody that was at that may recall that the number there was 34 could be built.
Joe, is that correct from?
From a density standpoint, the board is correct. You still have to count your infrastructure. You may not be able to get exactly 34, but your density is based on total square footage of property divided by the zoning district, R12. So that gives you, on R15 in this case, that gives you 34 units of density.
Thank you.
It may not look like some of the other neighborhoods. They may have to cluster the homes differently to get that 34 if they're able to, but yeah.
Okay. Anyone else on this side of the room who would like to speak? Yes. And if you could state your name and address for us.
Okay, I'm a little shorter. Gwen Bernelli at 3321 Waterford Place and the Oaks Divisions. I'm adjacent, but not directly adjacent to this property. I spoke at the Planning and Zoning meeting as well. I have a lot of the same concerns as the property owner has, so I'll try not to go over too many of the same things, but my husband and I just recently bought this property, and one of the reasons we bought where we bought was because it is a quiet, very friendly neighborhood, and one of the concerns that we have is what the property owner to the west of that, in the fact that through eminent domain or some other possibility, the current owner of the property could sell it or whatever, but at some point it could be developed. And with the stub where it's located now, it could be easily connected to Marlowe, and then you have a thoroughfare. Staff has already pointed out the fact that cul-de-sacs are not the best option, and that's what the current plan calls for this new subdivision, for emergency concerns as anything else. So that's one of our major concerns. Another thing is the fact that and I know the attorney for the developer mentioned the fact that, and the staff mentioned the 80-20. Single-family homes were what we knew was planned for there initially when we purchased the home. So we had no idea that we were going to end up with, 15 to 20 additional homes in that particular area. So again, that's another one of our concerns. One of the things that concerns me also is that in a couple of the previous conversations with the developer, they mentioned that they were marketing it to baby boomers, but it is not restricted to baby boomers. And that was one of the things that they kept mentioning over and over again in terms of the traffic studies that they had done, that there would not be, because of the age of the individuals, that there would not be the number of cars in those homes because of the fact that they're going to be folks over probably 55. But since it's not restricted to that, it could obviously be much more because anyone can go in and purchase those homes. So that was another concern of my husband's and mine. Lastly, and this is more from someone who actually served on the council many, many years ago in another state, another age ago, if you will. When you continue to make changes to your planning and zoning, any type of conditional use, you set a dangerous precedent. And that is one thing that I always have concerns when I'm in a community, is if I see this happening again and again, then even though you have a plan, it depends on whether you're following the plan. And obviously plans are always subject to change because communities, change through the years. But I think when you do this too frequently, and I don't know what the frequency is in this community, I haven't been here long enough to have done my homework in that area, but that is something that worries me just a little bit, because I'm seeing this now, we're seeing it in a couple of other places that I've heard about over the last few years. So that's another reason why I wanted to raise that. Thank you very much for allowing me to be heard tonight.
Okay. Thank you very much. Anyone else on this side of the room who would like to speak? Yes. If you could state your name and address, please.
My name is Bradley Selecki at 2933 Elements Road in Burlington. I'm here tonight with my wife, Kim, as well. It's certainly been our pleasure interacting with you, Mr. Mayor, and members of council over the last several weeks, but we do still arrive tonight with mixed emotions. It remains our preference that development, should it occur, be more in the character of the surrounding homes and less dense. We have, though at the request of council, maintained open dialogue with Shugart Homes. Our concerns from the start have been largely around privacy. We're impacted by an easement across the front of our property, a new city street at the side of our property, and 41 densely populated townhomes at the rear of our property. Our daily life and property are greatly affected, and we see no benefit to us or our immediate neighbors. That being said, we do trust City Council to make this decision based on the value and quality standards of our community, keeping resident safety, privacy, and property values at the forefront. We've been told that we won't like Plan B for this property. So we have done our best to remain open-minded. We also concede there have been improvements since this process began, but most have occurred in the last 24 hours. So we're still absorbing those improvements. We did see this plan, but unfortunately it was only about probably 15 minutes before we got in the car to come here. So we're still not certain if this is a cul-de-sac development or if it's a wraparound at this point. We greatly appreciate the opportunity to express our concerns. I've certainly abbreviated our concerns after the many lengthy conversations with each of you, and we trust that you will make the right decision. So thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, City Council.
Thank you, Mr. Selecki. Anyone else on this side of the room who would like to speak? Anyone on this side of the room who would like to speak? Yes. If you could state your name and address for us.
Yes, my name's Kent Little, and I'm here with my wife, Helen. We own property at 3314 Waterford Place in Grand Oaks. Our concern is that the property values in Grand Oaks, in the last development where we live, properties range from $300,000 to $500,000. We don't believe that a $200,000 condominium is going to add to the value of our property. Excuse me. However, we haven't seen this latest iteration of the plan until tonight, and still don't know what the topographical changes would be in that property. With my property backing up on the west side, of that property, it appeared from the earlier iteration that there would be extensive excavation in that property to change the level. We're up on the high side, so it's going to scale down to the lower end. I know that tax value is beneficial to the county and to the city. However, the satisfaction of residents is also beneficial to the city. We're here, we're residents, we've been here for a while. We purchased homes in that area for a reason. Part of the property that Mr. Brewer had, originally was like a 22-acre tract, a 24-acre tract. The Carters, we, and the Millers bought about an acre and a half up on the far point, right behind where this condominium is going to be. We bought that in order to have a little privacy and serenity, and we could commune with nature in that forested part of our property. We do not relish the thought of another condominium project being built at our back door. We already have to the north an abundance of townhouses, apartments, and condominiums. So, I don't see that this particular subdivision is going to add any value to our property, perhaps to the city, but I think the city has a moral responsibility to the residents. We're residents. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Little. Anyone else on this side? Sir? If you could state your name and address.
My name is Stephen Hoffman. I'm here with my wife Shannon tonight. We're at 2955 Alamance Road, which is a property, if you will, to the south of the property we're discussing tonight. Like a lot of other people, I think I was quite surprised by the new design that we just saw. I hadn't seen this until just now. But looking at it, one of the things that I have in question, because I think it came up in planning and zoning, was how do you get a fire truck out of there? I mean, it's a cul-de-sac. How do you turn around a fire truck? You don't want to back it out. It's a 2-lane road.
We do have procedures. Ms. Harden, do you want to touch on it?
You want to take a stab at that first, Amy, and then from TRC perspective?
Yes, this would go through our TRC process, and we would make certain that that radius is appropriate for a fire truck, so that they would be able to turn around.
Okay.
So so TRC stands for our Technical Review Committee, which is made up of our staff team from all our development-related departments, planning, engineering, transportation. The fire department participates in those meetings. It's led by our planning department. So what they do is they would look at a set of plans. Many developers will come in to what they can call a pre-TRC meeting, in their first iteration, get some feedback about all of our development standards and our technical standards, and then they submit a formal proposal to the Technical Review Committee. And that's what Ms. Nelson referenced earlier, is if council was so inclined to take action on one of these iterations that has come forward since the TRC meeting, then staff would ask that the plans come back to Technical Review Committee before the developer was authorized to move forward. So in those meetings, like I said, you have a transportation department or engineering department, planning, fire, and they're all talking about what are the standards for turning around. So your question is a very, very good question, but it will be addressed a combination of our public safety departments and our transportation department. Cul-de-sac designs are typically sort of worked out in those kinds of scenarios. We had a recent rezoning about 2 or 3 months ago where we involved the fire chief in trying to figure out how to make sure we've got multiple ways in and out. So there is a process and mechanism to do that on the technical side.
Okay. And if there's a wreck where the thing comes together, how do the people get out?
That's a great question, and it's a question that has been discussed quite a bit by our staff.
Yeah, I was wondering how the council is going to approve this if this has such issues as it is. That's what I was going to bring up. The other thing I wanted to ask was R15. What's wrong with R15? I mean, that's what it's zoned today. I know they want to change it, But I mean, I know we're talking about the density of the houses is a concern that we have, but, you know, why not leave it the way it is? I mean, you know, saying there's 20, 30 houses they can build, is that not sufficient? I mean, I know, you know, that's what Jason was saying, that, you know, maybe about on the, if you built houses probably to the quality and value of Grand Oaks today, then I'm sure the property owners would make the money they're looking for. You know, and we'd have real houses back there and not these little townhomes that are being built. I mean, that's not what the shoe group is wanting to sell, but the question is, would that not be better for Burlington to actually have nice houses back there? That's the only things I've got. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. If you wanted to comment regarding the cul-de-sac.
To the podium, so.
So
we're recording the meeting.
Oh, sorry. If you could come to the podium.
Yeah, so everyone, so we're recording the meeting, so it helps if you're here in terms of our folks operating our cameras. So
Sure, I'm sorry.
We do have a significant amount of residents who enjoy watching this at home.
We watched it at home. So I just wanted to comment because we all probably have different perceptions on this layout. And I would like to say that for Kim and I, the cul-de-sac is a better arrangement as far as the privacy concerns that we have, because it does take units off of that back line. And Greg Garrett has certainly worked to put this layout together to try to address those concerns on the back line. So I don't think I maybe articulated that as clearly, just asking if this particular layout is one the city is apt to support or not, but just wanted to clarify that on the cul-de-sac. Thank you.
Thank you for that clarification. Anyone else on this side of the room who would like to speak?
I'd just like to address the agreement.
Sure.
Yes, my name is Aiden Stoltzfus Engineering, 1009 Lisa Run Drive in Kernersville, North Carolina. As far as the grading goes, this plan compared to the last plan, the only big difference in the grading is the deletion of the street and the installation of the cul-de-sac. And so the grades that you've seen on the last plan, they'll be similar. The elevation is lower towards the top right of the page, and it comes back up. So with the type of folks that we see coming in, they like slab-on-grade foundation, no steps, and it's a function of grading when you're out there doing that. And so we will have to cut down on the upper side to fill the lower side, but we're going to try to move as little amount of dirt that we need to move. So it'll be kind of a tiered system. The street on the upper side will be a little bit higher in elevation, and the cul-de-sac will be a little bit lower in elevation. And as far as the fire truck turning radius, we did design the cul-de-sac similar to the city, well, to meet the City of Burlington standards. It's about an 80-foot radius or diameter of the cul-de-sac for fire truck turnaround. And I'll be happy to answer any more questions you may have.
Any other engineering questions from council? Anyone else on this side of the room who would like to speak? You could state your name and address for us.
Yes, Charles Carter. Charles Carter, 3322 Waterford Place. That's in Burlington. I guess I'm on the south, that really located behind with Ken Little, that buffs up to it. I'm concerned about, I didn't have a chance to see the new drawings that were out tonight. So I'm concerned about the land structure, how much grading will be done in that section. Undoubtedly, the new section deals with something different than I've had a chance to see, because I've been there for 15 years, and I'm wondering about the topography that they're going to redo. Can explain the engineer was here, I think. Yeah. He was talking about it earlier.
What was the particular question?
About the land, the wall, the topography that you want to redo back there on the back side.
You know, we're about to do that.
The excavation.
Excavation, yes.
Yeah, I'll show you where it is. So right here. In that area right there, we were cutting down probably, and this is plus or minus still, we still got to do the final design after after the meeting or after this gets approved. We still got to do the final design, but based on the county contours that we do a lot of preliminary grading on, it's a plus or minus about a 9 or 10 foot cut in that area, but it would be sloped down gently. So it'll be something that you can mow. So it'll honestly set the houses down so it's not so obtrusive to your view, I guess, from out your back door. Does that make sense?
Okay, then that means you say there's a cut down of 9 or 10 feet on the backside, back there where you plan to come down that lane back there, on the backside of by from Marlboro Drive bus out right down there.
Well, we would have a landscape buffer up against the property. It's a 20-foot type C landscape buffer, and then we would be cutting down from there to where the units, the development were at. So actually, the project would be a little bit lower grade.
The homes would sit about 9 foot below
the grade where I am now then.
Where you're at, yeah. The back of your property.
Okay.
Anyone else on this side of the room who would like to speak?
Hey, Mayor, City Council. Adam Parker. I don't know if you need my home address.
If you could, just for
4439 Alderm Olive Lane, Hall River. So the property here was actually initially my grandfather-in-law's. He passed away a couple years ago. Greg was actually, I think Greg would call my wife's grandfather probably his mentor. My grandfather-in-law, before he passed away, said, you know, this city needs more development. One day he was actually in commercial real estate and in building, and he said, this property eventually needs to be developed. He said the city needs it. In this area, it's close to the hospital. There's going to be more development there. They just built Lamb's Chapel Church, you know, half a mile down the road. So as far as traffic concerns, I don't think 40 homes is anywhere near what Lamb's Chapel is producing on every Sunday or Wednesday going down through there. Sugar was one of many developers that we spoke with. They were the only one that did not want to tear down my wife's grandfather's house. They thought that it was part of this community, and they wanted to honor that. So we selected him as a quality builder. Again, my wife's grandfather knew Mr. Shugart also, knew he would do a good job, and he advised us to contact Greg when that day did come, if it got to that point, which it did. I understand a lot of the homeowners' concerns. I spent a lot of time with Kim and Bradley. Consider them friends. I think everybody joked at the planning and zoning meeting because I sat with them, and everybody thought we were enemies. I don't see it that way. This is progress. A lot of the questions that I hear are around townhomes. Well, all these people that have bought homes in Grand Oaks, my parents live in Grand Oaks. My father is actually one of the property owners. There's already townhomes surrounding Grand Oaks, along with townhomes backing up to this property. So I understand the concern. These are going to be the nicest townhomes in this area. I think the ones on the north end of Grand Oaks probably are in the 120 to 140 range, and on the east side probably about the same. It's just one unit structure. These are basically duplexes. We saw this being very fit. Again, we're still going to own the home, so this affects us just as much, if not more, than anybody else in this situation. But we saw it as a good thing. We do recommend the plan that just came out. I understand maybe the safety concerns from a fire truck standpoint. I know there's plenty of roadways in Alamance County and Burlington that are dead-end streets. Grand Oaks has plenty of them. Never been an issue from what I've lived there since 2001. I feel like we've worked hard to, again, me included, I met out there with the Seleckies this afternoon to try to say, hey, listen, where can we come to an agreement with privacy for you, giving you what you need in order to receive the land easement and make this work. It's not a profitable thing for anybody other than the developer and us to an extent, but we've really tried to make it as less impact as possible on them. As far as the traffic study, I think it's pretty obvious that I think it's like 10% of what DOT says is acceptable. And that's based off of a traffic study, not just saying there's going to be elderly people living there. Other than that, I do feel like, if we want to talk about Alamance Road, that, again, I've traveled that road for years living in Grand Oaks. That curve is probably a danger, but not from the standpoint of pulling out. It's just danger of itself of being a 45-mile-an-hour zone. I know this meeting is not for changing speed limits. Typically, I like upping speed limits to get traffic moving faster in a big city, but, in this situation, 45 is faster on that curve. I think everybody can agree with that at this point. The Shugart Homes, from what I can tell, and again, I'm not an engineer by any means, they have tried to grade this property will have virtually no impact on any other homeowners. They're building a large retention area to catch water, which I actually think will help some of the surrounding homeowners. The properties to the west in Grand Oaks sit above this property as it is now. There'll be no sloping towards them, be sloping away from them. There's already trees there on their property. Shugart Homes is going to put an extreme buffer here, more than I think what the city actually calls for. And so we just feel like this overall really helps the city of Burlington. I know my grandparents are just moving here from Charlotte, and we ended up building them a home because there's not as many, there are homes in Burlington like this, but they're all sold. I think, we don't need necessarily, we have Waterford, we have those nice neighborhoods, including Grand Oaks, that have the single-family homes. This is what the city is lacking, what the demand is showing right now. So, again, I appreciate your time and consideration. Have a good day.
Thank you, Mr. Parker. Anyone else on this side of the room who would like to speak? Do I hear a motion from council to close public hearing?
Make a motion, we close public hearing.
Second. All those in favor of closing public hearing, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Public hearing is now closed. Do I hear any questions from council or a motion?
Question, Amy, again, what, in your preliminary remarks, you had said about this had not been, will it have to go back to TRC?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Would it be, assume, and I'm only making an assumption for the purpose of discussion, if it's approved, it'd be approved subject to TRC review and approval?
Yes, sir.
I guess my question would be, wouldn't it be better to send it back? I'm looking for some help or recommendation, and you heard the old deal about getting the cart in front of the horse. And this thing has literally evolved right up to the time of the meeting.
Right.
Are there some things that need to be considered that TRC needs to consider that need to bring to this body here? I don't know. I'm just asking the question.
It's entirely up to council how you want to handle that. However, the changes, they're not massive changes.
Technical.
But they are enough that the technical review committee would need to look at it and make sure everything functions the way it should. But there's really no reason from a staff perspective to bring it back through the process. Like I said, it's certainly up to you how you want to handle this, but that's what we've done in the past. It just goes back to TRC.
When you say bring it back through the process, bring it totally back through the process.
Right, or however you wanted to do it, yeah.
Amy, if it goes back to TRC, does that mean it goes back to P&Z or comes back to council?
That's going to be, I'm sorry. It's up to you how you want to handle it, but I would think it'd come back here. It should.
It'd be subject to TRC approval.
It should just come to TRC and let TRC handle it because, yeah, basically this is a concept plan, and when you're doing a conditional rezoning, that's generally what you have with it rather than a full-blown set of plans. You just have a concept plan, it gets approved, and then it goes back to the TRC for the technical aspects that staff is skilled in.
Does that answer your question?
Harold, did that answer your question?
Yeah.
Actually, I read the first conditional zoning that this city was really involved with was beginning in 2003. And the first major project, some of us remember, was Alamance Crossing. And that was a situation where what Amy is referring to occurred in the sense that it was so many moving parts. The concept was approved by council, and then TRC went back in and looked at some specifics as they got into place. Now, what I can't remember was when they went back in, if there was changes needed to be made, how that was handled. I don't recall that.
Well, I don't know how that went, but I know, we have COs that have to be issued
Right.
for these places to be occupied. So we have that authority to control, make sure that things are implemented correctly.
If I could ask one question, if it's appropriate, the cul-de-sac concept. I'm not trying to play architect here, but is there any concept where there's a type of construction that could be implemented where, in case there was an accident or there was a fire, where there would be cuts in the cul-de-sac where if needed in emergencies, where vehicles could potentially come down the back side of the property just in, I would think, and maybe I'm out of context here, for emergency situations to relieve problems if that occurred.
That, just from what I've learned over the years, from my personal perspective as a planner, that's preferable. However, this has changed so that they do not control the property where that would need to go. So I'm not sure how they would want to try to handle something like that.
Mr. Owen, staff worked on some today and had a short conversation with Mr. Wall at some point this afternoon with something similar to what you're describing. And I think there was a proposal that a couple of folks had suggested early this morning or late last night, I can't remember which, where there would, at the end of that cul-de-sac where now you see the shrubbery, was a sidewalk. And then one other conversation staff had today was a grass pave or grasscrete scenario that straddled the sidewalk. And our city engineer, Mr. Lambert, has designed some of those in his private career over at Elon University. We even looked at some of those on some aerial photographs of how Elon, if you think about how Elon may get fire trucks into tall buildings in the center of campus, but yet maintain a pristine look. There was some discussion about how you have a sidewalk, obviously, that gives some pedestrian connectivity throughout the neighborhood. But then if you had an emergency and the fire truck needed to come in from both directions, which sometimes happens operationally, or if you had a natural gas leak or a road collapse or sinkhole or something to where folks couldn't get out, there was at least a plan temporarily where folks can get in and out. We had some discussions about that. This came in later this afternoon, probably 4, 5, 6 o'clock this afternoon.
6:15.
So 6:15, Ms. Nelson says. So that's not being discussed today, but that's something that the mayor had to ask. I can't remember if it was last night or this morning. Could we look at a way to?
Yeah, that was an item that I brought up with Mentor and Mr. Wall, and Amy can confirm that as council's been going through the UDO, Unified Development Ordinance update, and looking at kind of best practices around the country, connectivity is important, and there are multiple ways to get to connectivity, and one of them is to include sidewalk access off of a cul-de-sac. So in this case, you've got we haven't talked about it very much, but a mail access point for postal drop-offs at the entrance of the division, and you have residents who can see that from their backyard but would have to make a trek all the way around the division. So increasing connectivity by simply making a sidewalk connection there improves the connectivity overall of the neighborhood. And as the manager mentioned, could be utilized in other ways to improve emergency vehicle access. So.
Well, honestly, if we want to use common sense, the people who live on the north side, if they're going to want to walk to their mailbox, they're going to find a path to get down to this site here. And, I mean, what I learned about planning over the years, if for sidewalks, you let people walk for a while and they'll tell you where to put the sidewalk at. It's just some common sense here. That's the concern that I see in case something, and let's say it may never happen, but you've got, what do we have here? Maybe 1,600 feet from the, well, you have to go all the way back to Alamance Road. We have more than that, wouldn't we? What would we have?
From 62 to the cul-de-sac?
Yeah.
Approximately 1,800 feet.
1,800 feet. How about from, okay. How about from the site here where actually the homes began, because that's not really fair to make a comparison, because you got the distance from Alamance Road back into the first lot area. That would probably be what, 1,400 feet, 1,300 feet.
Did you have a specific question related to a distance squared?
Yeah, I'm fishing for some answers from our developers out there, and I'm throwing the hook out.
Okay, I've got some answers for you.
So first of all, I would like to kind of talk you through how this has all evolved with the new cul-de-sac design. It became very evident between the Parkers / Harrises and the Schleckys that they, and I really agree with, with the vision that's now in place, but we wanted to retain kind of the estate feel of both the Harris home site as well as the Schlecky property. And so we've been very protective in, what happens in between those two homes. And so, I would say that it certainly is our position that we'd like to, for you guys to take action on this plan. But if it's a, if you feel that you really need to address this concern, then whatever would happen there, we would like it to be pretty well to blend in with the character of these estate homes and not look like it's just something, a mulched pathway and again, that's not me coming from, I like the cost savings, trust me, but it's really more of protecting the character that we've tried to create there, or that's there now, should I say. And so I'm open to hear what the council desires, but our preferred plan, and I think I'm speaking for Schlecky as well as for Parker, that we would like to keep it that character intact as much as possible, and appreciate the consideration of eliminating that loop road. Thank you for that.
Other questions from council?
May I ask a question? Sure. Mr. Garrett, so, and I haven't asked this question before, so tell me where the shrubbery area is shown on that's on the screen. Is that property, I guess, on the Unit 41 side of the shrubbery, is all that is common area up to the black line that's number 42, and is number 42 also in your own, would that be in your ownership, or is that a separate
So
parcel?
the lot 42 will be retained by Harris and Parker. It is part of the overall development, but that lot will be, they're going to retain that ownership. And the hedge is actually, half of it is on the lot 42, and half of it is on Schlecky. And so, however, what we will do is we will put an easement over that hedge area, and so the HOA is going to be responsible for the maintenance. And so that's something that we have worked out among the three parties.
Mr. Brown, I don't know if you want to move, or if I could ask our city engineer to come forward and just talk a little bit about the paths around Elon, if anybody's interested in hearing what those look like. But I don't want to prolong a meeting.
Would council members be interested in hearing any more about those fire access soft surfaces? I've walked them many times as an Elon student, so I'm very familiar with them, but I'm familiar with them. I think that's a no.
Okay.
Any other questions from council regarding this plan? Do I hear a motion from council regarding the plan?
May I say something first?
Sure.
If you do approve this plan, what we would like to do is have all the conditions read out so that we're sure of everything that's covered.
Okay. Can you remind us of any conditions currently?
The developer to read those out, to make sure that everything's covered, including what is to happen with this piece of property right here.
Okay.
So are we asking the developer to
Yes,
do that in
to
that
come
lot?
and read this out. If this piece of property is like it's shown on this, we're going to need some kind of special treatment for that as far as the rezoning goes. Let's see. We're going to need to be sure that if this is going to the Seleckis, that this is going to be used as, allowed to have the residential uses that are normally in play so that they are able to utilize that property. They will need to do a recombination before construction of any buildings, and that is if that property is passing to the neighbor. And we'll need to go around this piece of property with the rezoning line so that this part will not be included. So, because it will be part of their property, the Seleckis, instead of this rezoning.
Mr. Garrett, do you have a list of those conditions, or?
So obviously, the conditions we submitted initially, and if there's more, like on the technical part of that, then no, I haven't seen that. But my plan, we have to, we're going to have, when we move forward with closing with the property owner, we were going to have to carve out Lot 42. And so in my thinking, at that point, we would also carve out the land that's going to be conveyed to Shelecki, and we would go ahead and that deed transaction, we would go ahead and overlay that easement that would permit the HOA to maintain the evergreen hedge. So, yeah, I don't have a problem with anything that Amy said. It's just really a matter of order, how you want to do it.
So to clarify, Amy, and stop me if I'm wrong, basically when council states a motion, items have to be included in that motion as far as the conditions and cannot be added later.
Right.
And so I think for council's comfort, it'd be good to state all those items and clarify all those items.
Right, for the record.
For the record.
And there's been conditions offered up that's reflected in this plan to the PALs that we would, if you want to have a narrative of those conditions, we need to add that as well.
So recognizing that we don't have a definitive list nicely presented so we're all on the same page, do we hear a motion possibly to continue this to February 6th and ask the developer to bring forward a list of those conditions?
I'd like to see him. I think, I've been around a long time, and one of the worst things you can do when you leave here is not know what was decided. I'd like to, once we decide something, I'd like to have a pretty good fix on it. So having said that, I think the prudent course of action would be to delay it at that time to see it. Now, having said that, we have closed the public hearing.
Yep.
Barring reopening the public hearing, which the city council could on its motion tonight, possibly. But if you do it again later, it's going to be re-advertising. But I'd make a motion that it be tabled, for consideration of it, and for the council, to consider it on the merits, either for or against at that point, and vote on it, and it will not be a public hearing, okay? And is that, I think our interest would be better served, the city will be, to know precisely what the conditions are. So.
And frankly, it'd be better for all the property owners to know too. Everybody, the developer and the property owners too, everybody knows what the conditions are, and that's, if I'm not mistaken, that's what we'll be voting on.
Right.
All right.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yeah.
May I make a request that my property and the other Grand Oaks property owners have a fence in addition to a 20-foot type C buffer just going along that property line, because it's only a 25-foot distance from that house to my property.
So that would be a conversation to continue in that interim with the developer. So nothing about the decision tonight closes the books on further discussion. And so,
As a matter of fact, it should do the opposite. We've heard a lot back and forth about this, and I am very much, and most of the property owners out there I've spoken to, I've echoed this, that I am very much pro-growth, pro-economic development. But this project has morphed several times to where it almost feels like we're trying to put it together with a Band-Aid and duct tape. So we need to get it cleaned up and get those conditions such as was recommended, so that everybody is 100% clear without a sense of urgency at the witching hour. Because that's when bad decisions maybe get made and then there's unintended consequences. So if I agree, was that in the form of a motion?
That is a motion.
And I would second that motion.
so the motion set forth by Councilmember Ward is to table this, and February 6th is an agreeable date for you. That is our next council meeting.
I'll be prepared assuming all the conditions are presented to the council.
So tabled to February 6th, requesting that a list of all the conditions be brought forward to council, so we're all clear and on the same page with that. And all parties can continue to have discussions going forward. We appreciate the discourse that has been happening and the design changes that have resulted from that. So there's a second to the motion. Any questions regarding the motion? Manager?
Can we get a time commitment on when the conditions will be ready from the developer?
Is there a date that you would feel comfortable bringing forth a list of? Obviously, many of the conditions are already here. They just need to be
Right. Yeah.
formally presented.
Yeah, so I would say 1 week.
So by the 23rd.
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions? All those in favor of the motion to table this item, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion is passed. Thank you very much for your participation in tonight's public hearing. And thank you to all parties who spoke. That moves us to the next item on our agenda, which is the city manager's report regarding the Alamance County African American Cultural Arts and History Center. We'll give folks just a moment to clear the room.
Very excited to hear about our report.
I like that report a lot, dude. They heard us talking to it.
Mr. Wall, Mr. Garrett, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate
request mayor moving.
All right, everyone, if we can come back to order for the manager's report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I apologize for my absence at the last city council meeting, so I'm going to try to give my report this evening.
We're glad to have you back in full health.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here. So this is regarding the Alamance County African American Cultural Arts and History Center proposal, and council has heard from Ms. Jane Sellers at the December work session. And first of all, thank you for approving the letter of support. Ms. Sellers has seen a draft of that, so she's gotten a draft, but I will send her an official copy tomorrow morning and get that in her hands. Per the requests of some of our elected officials, we wanted to continue some conversation and provide a staff report on 4 topics that have come up in the discussion about the proposal that we've received from Ms. Sellers. One is statutory authority. So this is what I'm going to cover this evening, and thank my colleagues on our city staff for helping me put this together. So 4 things I'm going to cover is talk about statutory authority for the city to assist with matters such as this. Number 2 is to review the relevant sections of the Destination Burlington Plan that are related to arts, history, and culture. 3, I'll talk about a little bit of the history of financial support from the city to Alamance Arts and any other similar organizations. I'll tell you the only we've found is Alamance Arts. And number 4 is to provide a summary of the history and relationship with the North Carolina Softball Hall of Fame. And so let me dig into that, and I will do that quickly, being that it's almost 9 o'clock. So first of all, let me talk a little bit, and I'm going to defer to my colleague, Mr. Huffman, if you have any follow-up questions. But Mr. Huffman did research in terms of the municipal authority to fund museums and museum operations in North Carolina and the state statutes. Mr. Huffman does believe, I'll share with you, he's got a lot of details, and I believe this information has been provided to the City Council. I'll move to the conclusion, which is Mr. Huffman believes that the Burlington City Council does have statutory authority to establish and support museums. And there's a lot of citations there if folks are interested in details. In regards to the city charter on that matter as well, Mr. Huffman does believe that the Burlington City Council may deem the support of museums necessary or appropriate to promote comfort, convenience, or general welfare of its citizens. And so I'll defer to him if there are questions on that. Question 2 was to review the relevant sections of the Destination Burlington Plan. Ms. Nelson, our Director of Planning and Community Development, has provided that information to me. There are at least 4 references in the September 2015 adopted Destination Burlington Plan that do mention museums. Page 58 mentions museums, broad terms with no specific names or types, as being in partnership with Alamance County Public Libraries. That's in the livability chapter of the document. Page 152, the term museum is mentioned in reference to the Textile Museum at Glencoe Mill Village. That's mentioned in the economic development section of the document. Page 161, the term museum is used in reference to a case study on industrial heritage tourism as a concept that our consultant was referencing and exploring. That's also mentioned in the economic development chapter. And then the 4th reference is in the category under livability in the plan. Page 67, goal number 4 is to provide shared activities to bring Burlington's community together, enhancing recreation, cultural, and entertainment offerings. That was recommendation number 1. While that section certainly speaks more to activities, that's, I guess it's up to interpretation of whether that includes enhanced cultural offerings. And I think Ms. Nelson shares that, that certainly seems to be fitting with some of the things that are talked about in the economic development chapter of the document. So I will move on to the 3rd piece, which is the city has had an ongoing relationship with Alamance County Arts Council. The city typically makes payments for general programming support each year. That's to the tune of about $5,000. Let me give you 2 exceptions. So records that have been provided by our finance director, Peggy Reese. We've made a payment of $5,000 in 2012, 2013, 2015, 2016. There was no payment in 2014 for some reason. And in 2017, actually made a payment of $10,000. So we do have some other funds that are transferred back and forth with Alamance Arts, smaller amounts. Typically, they do some lots of programming things for us at Recreation and Parks events, and it may be a reimbursement or a stipend to them for providing that. They will run some components of the Carousel Festival for us, and we may pay them a stipend for things like that. And we've had some various reimbursements as they helped out with after-school programs, more so as a vendor, if you will.
Any financial association with the Textile Heritage Museum at all?
None that Ms. Reese identified. Other questions on that? And then finally, Mr. Tony Laws, our Recreation Parks Director, gave me a great history of the North Carolina Softball Hall of Fame, which he had shared some with me, conversation, I think, when I first started, but my memory faded over the 2 years. It's a great story. Many folks may be familiar with that here, but in the 1980s, the city was approached by the what was then called North Carolina Amateur Softball. It's now called USA Softball of North Carolina. And they had put out an RFP for communities to pitch to be the Hall of Fame for the North Carolina Softball Association. We submitted a proposal, as did Greensboro, and as everyone knows, Burlington won. Congratulations, Tony. And so the city has been the home of that. The Softball Association paid 100% of the construction of the building. It did become city property because it was situated on city land. The Softball Association provided all of the furnishings and upfits to the building, also provides all of the exhibits that are in the Hall of Fame. They have induction ceremonies about every, not every, they do have induction ceremonies every 2 years, and typically have a banquet at Alamance Country Club that is paid for by the association, and then new folks are now featured in the Hall of Fame. Major maintenance and upkeep on the building is paid for by the Softball Association. Tony cited a couple of examples of where they have replaced things that need attention, wooden areas that needed to be replaced on the outside and things like that. The building is occasionally used for recreation department activities as well as anything else the city may need, so there's some gain to the city there without expense. The city does pay utilities, which is minimal. The building is only basically made available upon request, or if there's a Softball Hall of Fame event, which I said occurs every 2 years. That is also insured under the city's insurance since it's on city property. There is no staff provided at the building. It's open on special occasions, as I said, along with the induction day. But if we did get a special request and someone was passing through town and wanted to see it, we would meet them on an appointment. Very infrequently do we get those requests. So, Mayor, I think that concludes the 4 things that I was asked to look into, but I'll be happy to take questions on those 4 or anything else council may have.
Thank you very much for that report. Are there any questions from council regarding all the information presented? Hearing all that information, I'm curious, as Attorney Hoffman brought forward, there are a significant number of statutes that enable cities to fund these different programs, and as a parent, we've utilized them in different manners over the history of the city. Per Ms. Seller's request, I'd be curious to learn more about the financial structure and how cities do support museums as the one she's proposing. Be okay with council if we request staff to bring back examples of what cities have supported there?
I think we had the beginning of it in a request that Harold made. And I think Renee put that together. Maybe you could pull that out and fill in the details. That'd be a good beginning point.
Okay.
Yes, sir. As Mr. Ward referenced, Ms. Ward, our city clerk, pulled together, did some research, reached out to cities across the state and collected information about where museums are located. And I think we provided that via email to City Council, but we can get that, revive that document, get that back out, see if there's anything else to add to that. Anything else you'd like to say, Ms. Ward?
But not all cities responded, so I just tabulated the cities that did respond. The Councilmember Heights mentioned that there are other cities that have museums, and I can research that as well and add those to that list.
City of Raleigh has one downtown.
The other item is, and I'm not sure if y'all have had similar conversations with residents, is just about general city history. I think, Harold, you had brought this up before the meeting, in how cities preserve their own history. That's something that numerous residents have spoken to me about. Every day we lose valuable members of our community, and they, with them, have carried so much history of our community, whether it's in their attics, in their garages, or in their minds. There's history that's lost every day. And so I'm curious what opportunities or what models are out there for cities to preserve their own history and to create a space to share that history, whether it's with new generations or as a tourism piece. Such as textiles being preserved by individual members of the community. How do cities overall create a way to preserve that history? Have other council members had similar conversations?
I have, and I'll be very frank. Since I don't have to manage the money anymore and I can spend it now, I would very much like to see us, and this is nothing would happen overnight, but to look at the concept of just how a community such as ours might, if they wish to, get into the museum business, which is a different business now than what we've ever done in the past. But, you know, being here and realizing that, as Ian said and Bob both referenced, we're losing some really valuable information, unfortunately, as people age in our community. The history of every community is important. Unfortunately, now in our education system, history is not seems to be as valued as it once was for many of us. I think that the community, if it was researched and properly addressed, would really look in favor of a potential concept of the history for everyone, whether it goes back to, obviously, the African American part is a valuable part, back to the railroad, what began in our community, the enormous impact that Western Electric had on our community, the changes. I'm not sure many people realize just what enormous impact it had as the community grew, even to the impact of the I-85, I-40 corridor. And there's many more things, don't get me wrong. But my point is that from what little I know about museums, this is not something done piecemeal. People have to, a curator or someone, and again, I don't know how that's put together, but I believe it could provide both cultural opportunities, I think tourism opportunities could come from this. And that's kind of a broad picture of what I believe would be interesting to see. And I don't know how the public would respond. I told Bob Ward recently a story. When the city did the renovation of the Paramount Theater, there were a number of people you would think that who was maybe very conservative in nature would not be all that excited about the city putting the money into a theater and then the operational cost. But I remember being back in Parks and Recreation those days, the number of people that we would come into that would remember going to that theater as a child and watching the Saturday morning matinees, getting in free, as I was told, by bringing some cards or something. And bottle caps. And if you look back now at that theater, it is still used a significant amount by a number of people in this community who may be of some age. What I think would be interesting is somehow you could design something where not only it would certainly draw people of that nature, but also entice our young people to certainly appreciate where history came from, and where does the community came from and how it evolved. Now, I'm off my soapbox, but
I really believe that.
Well, I agree with you, because I've talked about this before. And we've also had the carousel, and we have a person who has enough information to fill a museum with that. But what occurs to me is that this particular group of people is bringing an opportunity to us to talk about the history of the African American community in this city. And they have the vision for it, and they have the, they can bring people out for it. They have people who are really interested in this. And so it seems to me that my preference would be that we figure out a way to help get this particular museum started, and then see where we go. That there may be a way then to merge all of these other ideas into it. But I think if we go back to the Mayflower and try to start from the beginning of Burlington's history 125 years ago, it just stymies people. It makes it too big a project to me. So I think it's important for us to begin somewhere. We don't have, I mean, I said this before, Saxapahaw has a history museum, for Pete's sake. I love Saxapahaw, but the city of Burlington needs to record its history as well, and it gets lost really fast. It really does. That's my piece.
Other council comments or questions? I know as Councilmember Butler mentioned on our previous agenda item, we're seeing a significant amount of growth. And with any growth in a city, there's change. And with change, it's always about how do we remember where we came from. So, and I think there's a quote that I love, which is that we don't all share the same history, but we do share the same future. And so when we're able to preserve that history and share it with one another, we help better shape our future together. And so I would love to continue this conversation. Do council members have a preference on how that continues, or what a next step?
I think we need to talk about it in on our own budget planning. I don't see that there's something that we can say tonight that this is something that we want to fund. And I was, like I think all of you were, surprised at the budget for this. But I guess the committee has to start somewhere and bring that to somebody. So I'm happy about the letter of support. And I have to say that I think we will see where this comes out in all of the many plans that we have for the next year.
Any other questions or comments from council? Sir, did you have a question?
Yes, sir. Just a point. I mean, I don't know whether the council has been ready to actually make a motion or to discuss this, but my name is Marvin Dickerson, and I live at 1503 Harriet Drive. I've actually participated in voting for several of you, and welcome to the council. But as I sit here and I listen to this discussion, I can appreciate what you said, Mr. Owen, but by and large, there was a conversation a couple of weeks ago, and I don't speak for any organization, I speak as an individual. I heard a couple of weeks ago there was a discussion about African-American youth and some of the problems that were inherent with that. And when I hear talk about the funding for this museum, or the potential funding, and I've heard you talk eloquently about all of the different avenues that you can. But as a taxpayer, you can start taxing me an extra meal for the museum, because I know that it is a tax base, the same way those people were talking about this new development that they were going to talk about and how much money that we're going to generate. When I pay my taxes each month or each year, I should be able to have a portion of my money going for something that I feel that will endear me and the community. And it seems as though when I look at the community, look at the council now, I mean, I'm on the list for comments, but I just wanted to say that when I look at the makeup of the council today as opposed to what it was a while back, there is no African-American representation on it, but there are people who understand and who can obviously champion this cause. But when you look at a city like Burlington and you compare it with all of the cities you talked about, and you look at the potential for the crime that we're starting to currently have and all of these areas, there is a way to resolve that, but you have to do something first to set the precedence for that. And I don't mean to be out of order, but as I hear you going back and forth and talking about different avenues, I think it would be an excellent idea for the council to take some leadership and to find a way to fund, or not to fund the entire thing, but to at least put some money up toward it. Because, like I said, I pay taxes, and my money should go to some of the things that I think are important. I'm sorry for taking up your time, but I just had to voice that, and I would like to be on the comment phase.
Thank you, Mr. Dickerson. As Councilmember Hikes mentioned, in the coming months, we'll see council begin our budgeting process. In fact, in some ways it's already begun, but that budget is usually a July through June budget. So the next 6 months, we'll see council have many discussions, including a retreat, to set priorities. And so I think, as Councilmember Hikes mentioned, we'd like to see this conversation continue as work progresses on the center, as budget numbers firm up, and to see what kind of role the city might take in that endeavor. So, but there is no intention to take any motionable action this evening. This was a manager's report and council discussion. So unless I hear a motion from council regarding it or any further questions. Mr. Dickerson did mention there's a number of folks signed up to speak on this item. Normally it's council policy that if an item is on the agenda, it is not open for public comment at the end of the meeting. So is there any council preference regarding the members who have signed up to speak on this item, if you'd like to hear them, or if we, recognizing this may be a continuing discussion, include that at a later date? We have,
These things are not.
it's regarding the manager's report topic, the African American Museum.
I don't want to stop somebody from speaking. Maybe we could keep it brief.
If we could ask folks to keep their comments brief, to just 2 to 3 minutes, no longer. We will take a few minutes to go through these. So I'm going to do my best to pronounce names based on handwriting. So the first is Mary Longhill. Welcome.
Hey, thank you. I'm Mary Longhill. I live at 8719 Limo Road in Snow Camp, so I'm not a resident of Burlington. But I think the African American Cultural and History Museum would be a boon for the entire county and all the people in the county. So, thank you.
Thank you. Catherine Hartwell? Sorry, Catherine.
That's okay. Catherine Hartwell. I live at 3725 Dr. Pickett Road in Burlington. I'm out in the county. I reluctantly moved to Burlington per the insistence of my husband. I'm originally from New Jersey. I've lived all over the place, but I moved here from Carborough. When I wanted to take my son or a group of friends or go any place to get some cultural experience or just cultural food, I would travel to Raleigh, Wilmington, Greensboro, Salisbury, Charlotte, anywhere but Burlington. Right now, I'm a real estate agent. That's not very exciting, but my job is to bring people to Burlington. Honestly, for the first 4 years of living here in Burlington, I really didn't see the attraction to Burlington. Since I've met Jane and several people here on the council and here in this room, I've really come to love Burlington, and I've really come to understand that Burlington has an amazingly rich cultural heritage. I never even knew existed or that it was here. I think what Ms. Sellers has to offer is a wonderful start to possibly turning Burlington into a cultural, I don't want to say Mecca because that sounds too religious, but just a cultural center. We're right in between the triad and the triangle. Why not bring people here and have a reason to come here? Because if we have this cultural center, this constantly developing and growing cultural center, people are going to want to come here, not just as tourists, but eventually as residents. And what will that bring us? More tax dollars to support the cultural center. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Marvin, did you have anything else you'd like to add to your previous comments?
Yes, I do. Yeah. I don't even know how I'm being perceived, and I hope it's not in a negative way. I'm a former highway patrolman. I served in Guilford County. Military for 8 years. Vietnam, Bronze Star, Purple Heart, all that kind of stuff. But when I moved to Burlington, it's because my brother married a young lady from Glen Raven down here, probably in the same area where CeeLo lives. And he was married for 38 years. And I moved here because he was sick and he passed away. So I lived in Greensboro most of my life, but I moved to Burlington. And now that I'm here, Burlington will have to deal with me because there are some things in Burlington that I think really need to change. And one is, two actually. One is that the volume of this podium and the conversation, I'm a disabled veteran and I can't hear that well. So when I hear you all talking or hear murmurs, I don't get to hear the full text. And I'm quite sure there's some other senior citizens who are struggling to hear as I did. And then the second one, and this will be ended, is that I live on Harriet Drive. I live between Hillcrest Elementary School and the Burlington School. There are no sidewalks on that street. Children walk back and forth every day. I've talked to the police chief, and he's done a wonderful job of trying to help slow the speeders down. But I cannot believe that there are no sidewalks there when there's money in the community development block grant, there's money there. And when the developers are talking about building here and you're talking about enhancing Burlington and making a place, a world-class place for people to come, but you can't put sidewalks on a main thoroughfare between two schools. It's unbelievable. So I'll be coming back to the city council meetings quite often to voice my concerns because I feel like I paid my dues to be able to do that. And I hope and pray that you guys will act on it. And the center that Ms. Sellers is working on, I think it's a wonderful thing. And I've had Harold Owens signs in my yard, James Butler's signs in my yard. I've had your signs in my yard. So I've supported all of you in some way or another. So I'm looking for you guys to support what the African-American community has to bring to Burlington, because Burlington can be a much bigger place, and especially in the climate that we live in today, nationally and internationally. Burlington needs to step up and start doing some things to show that you are a world-class thing. It's not just LabCorp here. There's other common people here who wants to make a life here and pay taxes, and we want to see you do something to show us. And we don't expect you to fund it like Greensboro and their travesty with the museum, but we want you to help get the museum started, because this is a different type of museum. That's other people and by the people, and we want the city of Burlington to not pay for it, but at least help fund it to get it started, and then see if it can fund itself. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Marvin. Barrett Brown.
My name is Barrett Brown. I live at 1562 Morgantown Road, and I'm president of the Alamance branch of the NAACP. I want to thank you for your support of Martin Luther King weekend. Many of the council members, the city manager showed up at the multiple events, marched to support the legacy of Dr. King, which was to end racism and poverty. To that end, I'd like to thank you for trying to figure out how to make this African American Cultural and History Museum work, that you didn't just dismiss it, but you're actively trying to figure out venues to do that. But so thank you for showing up. Thank you for trying to figure out how to make it work. But don't tell me what you love. Show me your budget, and I'll tell you what you love. So when you consider your budget, that, you know, sitting front row and marching and letters of support are great, but show me your budget, and I'll tell you what you value. I do hear your concerns, Councilman Owen, about how we can be inclusive of all cultures and history. But I will tell you that African Americans have been on the shallow end when it comes to majority culture, understanding and appreciating and celebrating the joint history that we have. Central High School was open one day and closed the next. And they didn't, and it was a segregated school that closed and opened as Graham High School, and the trophies were all missing. They would just wipe the history out. The carousel that we all so proud of, that we love, and that are on city art, and we have whole festivals, used to be at North Park. And then they just moved it to City Park. It will do a good deal to end racism if we start being fair to minority history and culture, and to kind of build those bridges back of communications. We've got especially with this Confederate monument that we've got, Wyatt Outlaw was murdered, lynched right on the spot where there's a Confederate monument that we can't do anything about because the state legislature have decided. It would be a good gesture for the city council and the county commissioners and all of the people in Alamance County to join together in supporting this African American Cultural Center. To that end, also, I'm going to kind of bundle my comments a little bit, because one of the things that Martin Luther King waged a war against was poverty. And so when you're considering your budget, consider the request, the urgent need at the allied churches, because it's not us and them. We are all in this community together, and the only way we can make progress is if we end racism and end poverty working together. Thank you.
Thank you. Harvey, I apologize. I can't read your last name. Is Harvey still here? He's left. Okay, thank you. And Mark Ward, Nick Ward. Okay. And Alfonso Tovar.
How you doing? My name is Alfonso Tovar. I live here in Moorhead Street, 705. And basically, I would like just to add something, might be anecdotic. I would like to quote a song that most Americans should be aware of. Basically, because I think it's necessary for all of us to have this kind of initiative. When I think about Burlington, I usually think about cultural, I think about food trucks and beer. And I think it's much more than that. There are a lot of authorities, elected officials that I would like to see more here. A lot of individuals that are working hard to make this a little bit different. So I would like to read something here that I put together based on the, I'm sorry, thank you. It says the following. When I think of this initiative of Jen Sellers, the following comes to my mind. A song that originally appeared on the musical review Let Freedom Sing, which opened on Broadway on October 5th, 1942. Also a movie made by the end of World War II in 1946. As I stated before, it is a song made popular and famous all around the world by Frank Sinatra, a singer that does not exist. Do not worry, I don't intend to sing the song, but just I intend to quote the lyrics of it. The name of the song is What is America to Me? The House I Live In. That's the original title of the song. And it says like this. I'm just going to quote the most important thing that is relevant for the project of this group of people that are visionaries at this time. What it says, the following. It says, what is America to me? A name, a map, or a flag that I see. A certain word, democracy. What is America to me? The house I live in, a plot of earth, a street, the grocer and the butcher, and the people that I meet, the children in the playground, the faces that I see, all races and religion. That's America to me. The howdy and the handshake, the air of feeling free, and the right of speak my mind. That's America to me. The town I live in, Burlington, Alamance County, the town that we want to make it bigger in many aspects. the church, the school, the clubhouse, the millions light that I see. At this time, we don't see many because people go to bed by 6 o'clock or so, which is sad if we compare to what the chairman said. I come from Greensboro. I made a revolution there. I want to make the revolution here, which is true. We want to need a revolution with love. So to end this, it says, but especially the people. That's right, the people. That's America to me. And that is for me, for all of us, we wish this could be true because, it's a dream that might come true, that we can have this African-American Cultural Arts and History Center for all us to remember, because we don't have a present without a past. We won't have a future without a present. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes our public comments. Do I hear any council comments?
I would like to make one comment. Just to recognize city staff, not on this particular subject. I think enough's been said, and one of the comments were made that we need to do something to make this a gesture. I think Barrett made a comment or something, but this needs to be done the right way. It doesn't need to be a gesture, it needs to be purposeful. So I think it's important that we continue to work on dialogue, and Kathy had some great comments, as did Harold. But we need to see what we can do to make this purposeful and not just a gesture. I think that's important. But getting back to just council comments in general, our last meeting, I think it was on the 2nd, remember there's frigid temperatures, real cold. I read in the paper and we got emails and notifications from city staff, but one of the unsung heroes of our budget process and of our staff is our public works folks. We had a water main burst. It was, I guess, at Davis and Tarleton, and those individuals worked on that thing in frigid sub-teen temperatures all night long, 12 hours, give or take, hard. So that 8:30, 9 o'clock the following morning, the folks that lived in that neighborhood got up and their water worked. They turned it on. And, we've got inclement weather now, and we've had people all day long going up and down the roads, putting out product to be sure that we're safe and that things operate in our city functions purposefully. But my heart goes out to those individuals that are nameless and faceless many times, because we don't know what went behind us pulling that knob to get a glass of water. And I held on to the newspaper article on that and a couple of the emails. And as I see those folks, I tell them thank you, because that's extremely important, and that's part of the character of Burlington. And I just want to tell city staff how much I appreciate them for the work they do.
Thank you. I believe we had 14 repairs during that cold freeze.
Correct.
So
Correct.
we appreciate staff responding to all those and promptly. So.
I have a question for Tony. Barrett left, so I can't tell him this, but I'm fairly certain there were 2 carousels.
You're exactly right, Ms. Heights. The carousel that's at City Park is never in North Park. That was the first carousel bought by the city back in the late 40s, early 50s, from Genoa Park in Genoa, Ohio, and moved here. Later on, another carousel was bought and put in North Park. Unfortunately, and I don't know all the particulars of it, I don't know whether it was repairable, but it went down and it couldn't work, and so eventually they removed all the animals off of it. The animals were auctioned off. We have one left that's actually in our office, and the shell was left there for a while, but then it was taken out eventually because it was just a roof structure and everything. So that's a myth. I've heard that myth a long time about we moved the carousel from North Park to City Park, but that is not correct. I hope people will understand that. The carousel at City Park is a denser carousel that was there before the carousel that was in North Park. And unfortunately, I don't know the history of what happened at North Park while the carousel wasn't working, but it failed and was removed.
Thank you for that clarification. Other council comments? Got a couple quick reminders otherwise. Just a reminder that 2018 is our Kewaskum Centennial, which is our 125th anniversary. We are celebrating that February 13th, even though the anniversary is on the 14th. We invite everyone up to City Hall from 6 to 7:30 p.m. Right here again to celebrate. More information is available online, burlington125.com. Also, 2018 is the year of the dog, and our Pet Adoption Center is celebrating with an animal adoption discount. For 2,018 pennies, you can get yourself a cat or a dog on Fridays and Saturdays in the month of January. So it's $20.18, if you're going to do the math. And then Belong in Burlington is returning this year. The next one is February 28th, also from 6 to 7 p.m. right here in City Hall. We invite all residents, not just new residents, to come out and learn more about the amazing programs and opportunities all throughout our city. So, any other comments? Otherwise, do I hear a motion to adjourn? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Thank you very much for attending.